This is the Constructionist Podcast, where we take ancient stories, the person of Jesus, current events and topics, and help you construct a new Christian worldview that's relevant and loving to those around you. I'm your host, Kevin Bates. I'm a semiotician and community builder, looking at the signs of the times to build a better future together. This is the Constructionist Podcast.
Pause.
Welcome to the Constructionist Podcast. If you want to find out more about who we are, you can visit our website or go to our app. You can visit our website at resonatechristian.church or download the app on the Google Store or Apple Store and listen to the archive and get caught up. Today we are talking about immigration and the stories we tell ourselves. We do have a live audience in front of us that we're going to do some question, answer, and table talk time. So there'll be 3 sections to this talk for our online community. We will talk for a while, then do questions at tables that's amongst yourselves. So if you are listening online, you can also view those questions and answer them yourselves or with the people around you. Just to get started, I want to give an announcement from our immigration team. Our immigration paperwork that we've been compiling and producing over the last handful of months has come out of lawyer review. We have received those comments back from that information. We are now at a point that those have been also reviewed by our immigration team and changed and aligning more towards, let's say, legal language and also legal produced documents. Those have been produced now, and we're moving into our training soon. So we will be doing some practice trainings, which will be more of an iterative experience with our team, then moving into concentric circles out. People who want to be involved will be in the next trainings, and then we will then produce more trainings, online trainings and such for those who want to help those that need help. And so we want those trainings to be available. We also want to promote the trainings that are out there already. So those resources will be available, and I hope that you take advantage of it. Today, we are talking about an important subject, immigration. And I think that it's on everyone's minds, at least partially. Before we get into anything, let's say, political or legal or ideological, I want to name something very clear. This is a heavy conversation. This is not an easy conversation for us to have. We will be getting this into some details, but this is more like just kind of a umbrella type conversation that we're going to entertain today. The details of how to be involved with immigration help will come in the trainings that we offer. And those details you will be finding out. If you have our app or our website, you'll be finding out about that. So this is a difficult conversation. Probably everyone in this room has an opinion on this. All the children upstairs also have an opinion on this. Everybody has an opinion on this idea. And I think that it is important to realize that this is a difficult conversation, not because everyone has an opinion. It's a difficult conversation because there are stories being told. There are people with stories. There are people are complex. People are not simple answers with simple solutions. People are complex. We live in a complex world, and people's stories have fears involved. They have histories involved. We all have our own traumas involved when we tell these stories and even in our own involvement with the idea of immigration. So for some people, immigration is very personal. Immigration is very personal. My children are immigrants. They are not from this country. They were adopted and they've been naturalized in this country. So this is a very personal conversation for me. people's opinions about it that are negative or finger pointing. Those are my children. You're talking about my kids. So I don't know if you've ever experienced somebody accusing your kid or pointing a finger. If you can imagine what I feel personally, a national conversation finger pointing my children. So that's a difficult place for me to be. I'm going to try to be emotionally sound and mature in the conversation, not flip my crap here on stage. And we will try to have, a helpful conversation. But immigration is personal because it has to do with families. It has to do with children. It has to do with survival. It has to do with our history. Every president leading up to this one has stated publicly that we are a country of immigrants, that we came here. This country is built by immigrants. So there's a rich history of immigration that just because we have certain things being said now, that doesn't just erase that history. It doesn't just take away what we know to be true about immigrants coming here. We have pictures and we've some of us have been to Ellis Island. We've seen the Statue of Liberty. We've walked those grounds. That history, you feel that, you see that, you experience that. So to just discount that or just to, shove that aside and, oh, well, that doesn't matter. It does matter. That history, families, and survival does matter. For others, this is tied very closely to law. It's tied closely to order, stability, safety, and what do we become as our future. And we try to separate the personal from law. We try to separate the personal from order. This is not a personal, this is about order and law and order. And it becomes a very divided conversation. For all of us, I think, if you really took an honest look, and of course, just personally, I've spent time in, an immigration detainment center, helping somebody through that process. I've spent time with an immigration team. I've spent time crying and weeping with people and in this process. And so if I took an honest look at this conversation, it has to do with both. You can't just separate law, order, safety from family, personal survival, and a country built on immigrants. You can't separate those two. And if I took the words of Obama back in the day, we are a country of laws. And if we don't like the law, what do we do in democracy? We then write letters and campaign to write up a bill, and that bill is taken to the floor, and that floor then tries to come up with bipartisan support, and then that law then is voted on, and then that vote then goes to the next body, and then it's codified into law. That's the way we've worked, and that actually matters. That matters because that's what's built our country. That's kind of the infrastructure of who we are. But to say that somebody is criminal because of a civil, or that they've broken a civil law and so therefore they're a criminal, it's obvious that language also matters. And we have mixed up our language in this conversation because we've taken the personal and we separate it from the law and the order. So if we were honest, it's both. So wherever you are listening from online, I want to set a tone here that we are not here to win arguments. We're not here to argue. We might argue on the stage here, but we're here to tell the truth in love. We're here to be honest with each other. And that matters because winning arguments only costs humanity and human dignity. It does cost human dignity. And some of you have experienced that online. When you post something and somebody starts arguing with you, they attack your dignity, they attack your humanity. Love without truth isn't loving. It is just avoidance. And so we accuse, we blame, we finger point, and honestly, that's not helpful. So today we're going to hold all that tension together, and it is complex because the reality is that law and compassion does exist. That is a reality. Security and hospitality does exist. Borders are a reality. Human dignity is crucial. And I think that all of those live in a tension, and they do exist together, but we are told that they can't live together. we're told that they don't exist together, and we have voices coming from certain departments and media and socials that accuse us or tell us that those can't live in the same house, that hospitality and security are different, right? And we can't have the same discussion with those. And I believe that's a lie. It's what we call a false choice here from the stage, that you're to choose between human dignity and law and order. That just doesn't make sense, and that's a false choice. But it does shape how we talk. It does shape how we conclude. It shapes our fears. It shapes a lot of things, but it also shapes what we think of people. And that's important. So what does this look like to protect human dignity without surrendering to fear? I believe that we're not talking about theory. We're talking about human beings. We're not talking about an abstract or an objective point of view. We're talking about people. And I think that that's really the backdrop and the tension that I want to just put out on the front of the table. So I'm going to open up with humanity and enforcement. I believe that there is room for enforcement, and I do believe that there is room for humanity. I'm going to give you a story. When my children were immigrating into the country, and I went through the process of immigration 15 plus years ago, it was very smooth. The paperwork was literally automatically done for me. I walked into immigration offices. I talked to individuals. They told me the forms to fill out. I filled out the forms, Amanda and I did, and the process was smooth. Literally, I didn't even know what was happening, and then 3 weeks later, documents show up. We sign those and we send those in. I don't know what's happening, and then 2 weeks later, these documents, boom, we have a certification of citizenship. It's a beautiful citizenship certification with the stamp and the whole bit, with the picture, and now my first daughter has her immigration status. Second daughter comes, and this is now, well, she's 8 and she came at 2 years. So we spent literally 3 years in the process. It took 18 months for anyone to even call us back to tell us next steps. We didn't have forms in the mail. We didn't know anything that was happening. We would call, then we couldn't call. Don't call, we will call you. We end up going down to the immigration office, and it was so loose and willy-nilly about what we were doing. And honestly, we were just walking through this process hoping for the best. So it turned from order and processes and one thing after the other to hoping that it all works out, right? So how did we get from a process to just thoughts and prayers that it's actually going to turn out well, right? So that's honestly my personal story of immigration. It was very stressful over here. It was very difficult. So there is a problem, and I'm going to state it very clear. From my own experience, there is a problem with immigration. The process in the system somehow, and I don't work in the office, but I can tell you that it's broken. Something needs to change. Now, we did have bipartisan support for an immigration bill a handful of 2 years ago, and that was blown up. And so for the first time, I was thinking that we were actually going to have immigration reformation, that we were actually going to get someplace different when it came to this subject, but that was blown up. So I want to state something very clearly, though, right out of the gate before we lose credibility, is there is a real moral tension between humanity and enforcement, a real moral tension between humanity and enforcement. This is not imaginary. This is not propaganda. This is not, something that you're listening to fake AI news. This is not something to dismiss. This is something real, a real tension between humanity and enforcement. I do believe law and order do matter. The Constitution does matter. All of that matters. These things exist for a reason. Much of it is good. I don't want you to run a red light and I go through a green light and you hit me. Red lights are important. Green lights are important. If I can just simplify law and order. And some laws that are broken are hard learned. I mean, I've broken my set of speeding tickets, and those are very difficult. Those are civil laws. Those are civil order laws. I do understand criminal law to a point. Criminal law, murder, certain levels of drug use, violence, threats, assaults, and batteries, things of that nature. Those are criminal laws. Those are crimes that carry a different set of consequences. A whole different set of codes are written for those. So when we mix up civil and criminal in our language, we're actually just downgrading the tension between humanity and enforcement. We are not taking that conversation seriously. People do exist. That's humanity. Everybody here, if you went like this to your tummy, right? Bodies exist. Human bodies exist. And sometimes we forget that when we're talking to other people because we think they're an object and we treat them like an object.
Or we do it digitally. So.
Yeah, right. So we're such a digital world right now that bodies don't exist. You know, they're not in front of
so
us.
You can say what you want. And
right. And we become our keyboard warriors and blast out, you know, to a person, a human being. So we forget that human beings exist. We forget that families exist. We forget these bodies and these families have children. We forget their mothers. We forget their fathers. We forget their neighbors. They live down the street from us. We forget all that, and we go right into codes and law, and we change human beings to statuses. We change the language. You're no longer a human being. You're an illegal alien, right? You're an alien. I mean, how dehumanizing even our simple language about this subject becomes. So the tension is right there, and I believe that order and life is complex, and lives are complex, and simple answers don't fix much. And we turn this into a debate. We actually turn human beings and the tension of enforcement into some kind of debate. Now, immigration policy has been around for a very long time. I am old enough that I remember certain presidents speaking the same way that we hear now, where we have murderers, we have criminals walking the streets that are not documented people. That language has been around a long time. I mean, if you listen to the Clinton video of 1994, it sounds the same as the Golden Elevator speech that was given in 2015. It's the same language. You talk about hard on crime. I remember 3 Strikes You're Out, right? That was hard on crime. You talk about hard on crime. That was really hard on crime. That's one of the reasons why I stopped doing certain things that I was doing, because I didn't want to end up in life in prison for smoking a joint, right? And so I'm like, wow, you know, this is serious stuff. So that was a little scary. I mean, you think about the policies that were put in place of immigration under Obama. Clinton was super tough. Obama was super tough when it came to immigration. Both of them were tough on immigration. Trump is difficult, and I'm going to just be honest with you, right? Trump is difficult because he's a chaotic speaker with chaotic action. And that's the difference that I see personally when it comes to this very subject, chaotic speaking, chaotic action. But notice how policy, right? Immigration has not been reformed. Behind the desk of the immigration office, that paperwork has not changed, right? There's no bipartisan bill that's hit the House floor that has modified what we do with immigration. So we have a chaotic speaker with chaotic action. I think the big mistake that's being made here is this tension has just turned into a debate. And so debates require winners and losers, but tension requires this. And I'm going to say this with everybody in the room and online, and please listen to me. Tension requires wisdom. Tension requires wisdom. To have this conversation requires wisdom. Simplicity fails everybody. Simple answers, right? And that's what you're seeing. We'll just round them all up and put them on the paddy wagon and take them down to the border, right? That's a simple answer. That doesn't fix anything. And that will not fix the challenges that we face with this subject. That will not fix for the future. So just follow the law. If they would just follow the law, well, that's this sounds very clean. That sounds clean, but honestly, that just is when the law is tangled in bureaucracy, the law is tangled in backlog. 3 years when the law is tangled with inequity and delay and all these things. Well, just follow the law. Well, I'm trying. I had an appointment, and on my appointment day, I was detained. That happened to somebody. Just be compassionate, right? Well, that sounds beautiful, just being compassionate. Until compassionate doesn't answer the full weight of the policy, until compassion doesn't answer structure and accountability. So at what point do we need to have more of a complex conversation? Because real lives are slipping through these cracks. Real lives are breaking down in our society. So enforcement now becomes dangerous when it dehumanizes, right? So these people are illegal, aliens, cases, numbers, threats, right? Everybody is a criminal. Right? All these people, quote unquote, are a criminal. So something has really gone wrong with the discussion. When we are dehumanizing in our enforcement, people die. And that's why you're seeing what you're seeing today. So language is not neutral. Language trains us. Language tells us how to act. And when our language is violent, we eventually will become violent. So dehumanization just doesn't target a person that actually corrodes a society. And when we don't look at each other as human beings, we begin to become corroded as a society. And I think that's why there's certain people right now scared. There's certain people right now saying we're going to lose our democracy. There's certain people right now saying we're losing our livelihood and who we are as people. We're not people anymore. And so that's all because of dehumanization. And you see dehumanization all over. You see people calling each other names and just backbiting each other, best friends, just in total, violence towards one another. And so it's easier to excuse somebody's suffering. It's easy to do that, excuse their suffering, and that's just how it is. And we have this because we're hardened people. We're hardened people right now, and we do definitely need to change. And so compassion or dehumanization corrodes society, but compassion does not mean no law. And that's important to realize. Compassion doesn't, and if you look at some of the ancients, some of the wisdom speakers back in the day, Gandhi was not just hey, let's just love everybody and drop everything. He wasn't that way, and Jesus wasn't that way. And there's a lot of people that are in our history, philosophers and good leaders out there that we listen to now and we hear their voices now. They were not just compassion without law. That's a straw man's argument. That's a terrible argument. It helps nobody. So accountability is not the same as cruelty. Boundaries are not the same as punishment. Structure is not the same as violence. And so where the law exists, if we don't like the law can be changed in the process that I gave, how the law changed. So the question is how law is enforced and whose expense is it at? And we need to really have a deep discussion about enforcement versus humanity. So there is a difference between upholding order and using order as an excuse for harm. There's a big difference there. There's a difference between accountability and humiliation. There's a difference between security and fear-driven control. And we've lost this in our humanity. We've lost this. And we are in a human crisis. Everyone's worried about our democracy. I'm more worried about our humanity. I'm more worried about our humanity. I think that democracy will survive. I'm wondering if our humanity, if we can even sit in the same room and be friends anymore.
But even if our democracy does survive, humanity will last longer than that.
I hope so. I hope so. So this is where theories and ideas and ideologies begin to crack and break down. This is where things become harder. I mean, things become harder when you're sitting in a courtroom. It becomes very real. The tears flow. You're sitting there going, holy, holy smokes. This is real when a grandma walks in a pink suit, right? When you're sitting there watching grandma walk in a pink suit, you're going, what is going on with our humanity? That's when become law and order and courtroom and humanity get all mixed up, right, in the brain. So it's hard to watch a parent explain legal terminology, or helpers explain legal terminology to a 16-year-old. I mean, that's when it becomes really real. This tension becomes real. So this is where it began to break down for me that people and enforcement are not a separate conversation. It's not a separate conversation. When they become a separate conversation, that's when we take grandma in the pink suit and we start treating her like a non-human and calling her a criminal. And we need to change that in our society. Otherwise, we'll lose our humanity. So a lot of enforcement is decided by fear. A lot of enforcement is decided by power. Of course, distance, right, is just sent from the top, right, just spoken from the top in a distance. And our language has stripped us of our humanity. So just the closing thought of my section is, if we're going to talk about immigration honestly, we have to resist the temptation to simplify. This is not a simple conversation. It's not a one or the other, because real people exist in the space of law and order. If you believe we don't, then you just need to stop driving and stay in your house, right? And even at that point, there's still law and order
Maybe
with humanity.
live in your tent because your house is locked.
Yeah, exactly. You need to go live in it, but then that you probably need to blast off to another planet.
Camp anywhere either.
Right.
Time, place, and manner.
So what we choose to protect defines who we are. So just remember that, okay? What we choose to protect will define who we are. So if you choose to protect a human being, that defines who you are. If you choose to protect a policy, that also defines who we are. We need to be very careful in this discussion about immigration. So come on, speak into it. So you guys have been so silent.
Oh, we went for it.
Jump in.
You talked about civil versus criminal.
Yes.
And I'd like to reassess the point that when we talk about immigration, we're talking about civil offenses.
Correct.
Parking tickets, traffic tickets. What are more civil? Right-of-way obstructions. I can only think of road things right now. But that's the...
Not renewing your driver's license.
Criminal, isn't it? Littering is criminal.
I think littering is criminal.
Because of the amount it takes to, yeah. Anyway, so you have...
I'm not sure. Look it up. Google it.
Fub me real quick. If you want to bring up other civil offenses, that's great too. But we're talking about that level of enforcement. And oftentimes we try to place this argument over in the criminal accounts, which is high crimes and misdemeanors.
But also we have to remember that civil law has different consequence levels. And so not renewing your driver's license or getting a speeding ticket has a fine.
What is it? Jaywalking
is criminal.
It's criminal? Civil. Jaywalking.
Okay.
Okay. Yeah.
Littering, I think, yeah, that is criminal.
That's wild. What's that?
Littering.
Okay, it's a song. Gotcha. Yeah.
So it does have different consequences. And that's where we kind of are a little bit immature in the conversation about civil law, where we think, well, this is just like not renewing your driver's license. Well, the consequences of breaking certain civil laws comes with fines, comes with, hey, you're driving without your license. You need it's almost like the warning ticket that you get that your headlight is out. We think that that's what the consequence of civil law all is supposed to be. But breaking civil law when it comes to immigration could consequence into deportation. And so that is a larger consequence within the civil category. Overstaying a visa is a civil consequence.
And
right?
I believe that is the most common reason that folks are considered illegally.
Now, in my experience with
country.
people in this discussion and discussing real people, is some people have been here for 10 years, 15 years, 20 years, 25 years, 35 years, right? So I think that's our oldest right now is 30 plus years. You think about what you were doing 30 years ago, I don't even remember, right? So 30 years of being in the same place. And at a certain point, like my experience with immigration, oh, don't worry about it. It'll come, I don't know, like hope and prayers that it'll all turn out, right? Certain people were told it doesn't matter, you're under amnesty. It doesn't matter, you're under protective status.
We'll figure it out later.
We'll figure it out later. So when you're told that by an official person in a government office, you go, okay, I got the word, right? And you don't take care of certain things, or you don't follow certain protocol that you thought you were supposed to follow.
I know of someone right now that is here on DACA, and they submit work permits and work visas, and they have submitted their money and paperwork a couple months ago, and their date to get it back is soon approaching, if not already expired this week. And so even though they're following the process and they're a part of the plan, we're not following through with our actions and our responses.
Right.
Well,
And that is one of 4 people that I know of right now that are waiting on paperwork.
How about the person who has 20 employees that work underneath him? He's been in the country for decades, very successful business owner, has been on a work visa forever,
Pays huge taxes.
pays huge taxes, does all the things right. He has to. He owns a business, and his work visa is now expired. Why? Because he's not going down to the immigration office. No way. No way he's going to the immigration office. So how about that person, right?
The wine
Versus here's the discrepancy. Versus the person that is white, middle-aged male who's on a work visa that has two DUIs is walking around just fine. So you can see that there's problems with this
system.
And I wonder, is this really about immigration? Is it? Because if it was about immigration, we would be at the House floor working our democratic process, changing, reforming the law. That's where we would be at. And so we're not there.
We're a half hour in, so let's go to our questions. I think it's a good time to transition. And they will be on the screen for you all. This is for online as well. We are going to add a little more time to the countdown. We have a few things to settle out, so bear with us for another minute here.
Question came to us: at what point does civil turn to criminal? And the best example that was given just now was, it depends on how fast you're going, speeding, and that's when it turns to criminal. And I guess you could say that about a lot of civil laws. And so it does turn criminal at a certain point. So Jake, you're going to take us through some material while I...
No, it's
No,
me.
I'm sorry.
I am
Sure
not.
I am
Sure
going to
will
take us
be.
through some material, though.
Thank you. I need to drink something.
Okay, cool. So we're going to talk a little bit about some of the practical things we can do. I think it's going to be a less than satisfactory answer for a lot of this, because part of the conversation is policy change, and that's a much bigger conversation than we're doing today. My number one piece of guidance is get to know your neighbors. This isn't just guidance for the current crisis, but it's also part of how we build resilient communities in the face of climate change, natural disasters, pandemics, whatever. Knowing the basics that your neighbors might need or when to check on them is the foundation for resilient communities. For example, we have some elderly neighbors, and every week my dad will bring their trash cans up the driveway so that they don't have to do it and possibly injure themselves. And if my dad doesn't do it, there are at least 2 other households that will. Something small like that, simple relationship building, helps to build trust in your neighborhood, and that will help folks to feel safe and lean on each other in difficult times. Maybe practice asking if you can borrow a tool that you don't have, or a cup of sugar for a recipe. It's really easy for us to just go out and buy it ourselves because of the hyper-individualism of our culture. So find some small asks that you can make that might slightly inconvenience you or your neighbor, but end up becoming the thing that relationship and trust is built on. Caring for each other is a muscle that we build over time. And when we practice needing each other in small ways, we build resilience. I know it's cold right now, but consider throwing a neighborhood block party. That's a really simple way, non-threatening way to get to know your neighbors. Depending on how much you want to work at community building, you could also use your block party to invite folks to a private Facebook group just for your neighborhood and have threads that pertain to what your neighborhood needs. Maybe things like play dates for kids, help harvesting in the garden, borrowing or repairing tools, whatever is specific to your neighborhood. Or you could try matching people with needs. Something like, who can I call to check on my dog when I can't get home? Or when the pavement's icy, who can check on our elderly neighbors? With these basic connections, folks in your neighborhood will probably naturally start to watch out for each other and check in with each other. If your neighborhood already has this kind of community, find ways to check on your neighbors who may be targeted or concerned about being targeted right now. Keep an extra eye out. Consider running errands for them, maybe split the responsibility around the whole neighborhood if it seems safe to do so. Consider accompanying them if they're concerned about going somewhere. And with neighbors who are less sympathetic, try to balance telling humanizing stories, talk about challenges or fears that people are facing or how they've been a valuable member of your community, but also balance that with keeping information private so that we can keep our friends safe. Considering visiting places where immigrants spend time, but also with the understanding that they need a safe space. And if you are a white person, you are not automatically a safe space.
I experienced that just the other day.
Yeah. Not being a safe space because
I was not safe because I was white and walking into a community workplace of predominantly brown folks, and they looked at me and didn't want to have a conversation with me.
Yeah.
And that was fair.
It is.
Because of the questions that I was asking, they were like, "Ooh," and so that was fair.
Yeah. It takes time. And in order to become a safe person, you've got to show up
Yeah.
over and over, demonstrate that you were a safe person and actively be doing anti-racist work.
Right.
But stop by your local roadside fruit stand, buy some fruit, ask folks how they're doing, build a relationship over time, chat with your local farmer at the farmer's market, learn some words in their language, see what programs your local library offers, and participate in some of the cross-cultural activities. Something that helps build resilient communities is being out in the community, knowing and seeing what's going on so that you know when something is wrong.
Crazy, huh?
Crazy talk.
Yeah. How do you build
I
resilience?
told you it was unsatisfactory. It's the simple stuff.
It's what works.
Some things we can do to indirectly help as we see ICE activity increase, but there are also some very useful things to do in other emergency situations. Consider looking for de-escalation classes in your area to gain skills to help diffuse tense situations. If you have the time and can afford it, attend a first aid course or a Stop the Bleed course. Stop the Bleed is like a more advanced kind of first aid training, but it focuses specifically on stopping bleeding, whether that's a car accident, a kitchen accident, a gunshot wound, whatever. So those are really useful skills that can save lives in between an incident happening and when trained professionals can arrive. I've seen combination classes at the local gun club here in Sherwood that offer first aid, AED training, and Stop the Bleed all in the same course. So that would be a really great option to look into. If you are able, consider donating blood whenever you can. There's already a nationwide shortage. When it comes to something like observing or verifying ICE activity,
And you need to talk to your doctor before you do that.
the
Giving
donating blood,
Yeah.
that's a good idea too.
Yes.
Not just feeling
We
able.
don't
Are
give
you
medical
actually able?
advice, and we don't give nutrition advice. We
Right.
just are giving thoughts. Yeah.
I said if you were able, and your doctor is the person who determines that.
Please do not self-determine.
When it comes to something like observing or verifying ICE activity or responding to community needs, I would recommend getting training with PIRC, which is Portland Immigrant Rights Coalition, or UNIDOS if you're in Yamhill County. You can check their websites or social media for more information, but they're already doing some really great work, and so it's best to defer to their expertise.
There's also what's called ECO. I forget what exactly their acronym stands for.
Is that ECO or EKO?
ECO. And then also the ACLU is very active in both the PIRC, ECO, and the ICS, which is the Immigration Council Service. So
Immigration Council Service is a lawyer consortium PIRC does offer the training, although I'm sure since knowing your rights are a moving target right now. Definitely that the information that some of us receive by going to a PRIC training probably has modified a little bit since that is a moving target. So just because you believe you have a constitutional right does not mean that that constitutional
granted
right
to
will
you.
be guaranteed to you or exercised in the moment.
Mhm.
Might be exercised later, but that might be too later for the moment.
Which
So
has
just
been a
keep that
really
in mind.
interesting hurdle to see.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. So you said ACLU. Some other options that do have Know Your Rights training are the Oregon Justice Resource Center or the Immigrant Legal Resource Center. So if you have folks in your life who would benefit from that information, do with that what you need to.
UNIDOS is Yamhill, right?
Yamhill County.
Yeah,
Mhm.
got it.
I'm pretty sure they work pretty closely with PIRC, but they're trying to work more in rural areas.
And that's where it's needed, yeah.
So it's also important for those of us who are citizens to know what our immigrant neighbors' rights are, so that we can see when those rights are being violated. So, like we said, it can be a bit of a moving target, but here are some basics, at least as of yesterday. People have the right to remain silent and do not have to discuss their immigration or citizenship status with police, immigration agents, or other officials. Non-citizens must show their papers to immigration agents if asked, and it's best to have them on you. Interestingly, if you are a citizen, you do not have to carry your papers, so you kind of get into a catch-22 there by not having them on you. People can refuse to be searched, and agents do not have the right to search anyone without their consent or probable cause. It's best to remain silent and consult a lawyer before answering any questions.
Isn't that where it becomes gray for a lot of this? Is
Probable cause.
Yeah.
And for clarity, it's usually best to say something like, I'm using my right to remain silent, and then stop talking. That way, if you're non-responsive, at least you've said what you're doing. If someone is detained by ICE, they have the right to consult with a lawyer, but the government is not required to provide one. You may ask for a list for free or low-cost alternatives, and that's another place where Immigration Legal Resource Center can be really helpful. Don't say anything or sign anything before talking to a lawyer. And immigration enforcement is supposed to provide an interpreter if someone can't read papers they are given. So those are all basic rights that immigrants have, at least as of yesterday.
Well, but also, since U.S. citizens are being detained, this also applies for U.S. citizens as well.
It does.
So, yeah, it's not just for immigrants. I mean, people that are involved in protesting or involved and they're accused of obstructing federal action, that's a felony. And they are also being arrested for those things.
And using your right to remain silent and have a lawyer is very important.
Right.
Yes, Ken.
Question.
Is it okay to carry a copy of your paper so that you don't give your originals away?
So that is something that I've been trying to look for.
Let's
and I
repeat the
have
question.
not. Yeah, from my own personal life, like my family. As far as I know, the real ID requires two forms of proof of identification. It also requires proof of address and I think one other thing, but two forms. So two forms of identification could be your old driver's license and passport. Your old driver's license and, or your birth certificate and something. So there's two forms of the real ID, but that's not necessarily all that they're looking for. So for now, we've carried copies, but I'm not sure if that would be enough. Yeah, go ahead.
Two things. One, I've been through the real ID process.
Yeah.
Ordering.
Yeah,
You were required to have two original
right.
forms of ID, and a existing driver's license is not one of those.
It's not one of them. Okay, thank you.
So let's say that in the mic.
And something else.
Passport, something, yeah.
I asked for it, but all I had was a driver's license. I do not think.
They didn't accept that. Okay.
Birth certificate, that one, they will not accept a copy on your phone. You have to have an original.
So the comment was made, you have to have an original, 2 forms of proof of identification. And when this person went to DMV, I'm assuming that was not, a driver's license was not accepted as one of those forms of ID. The only time that I've done this, I just brought my passport and my birth certificate. So I just kind of just went through the process accidentally.
We'll do Renee and then Kendall.
Let's do Renee and then.
Oh,
go ahead.
In addition to that, my wife was born in Germany. She's now a naturalized citizen.
Yeah.
But when we came to Oregon, she had not yet gotten her citizenship. And the Oregon driver's license will show whether or not you are a citizen or not.
Yep.
Okay.
If you are not a citizen, the Oregon driver's license will know that.
And you can get a real ID not being a citizen.
Renee. Yeah.
I think the question was, if somebody is detained
Yes.
or arrested, whatever, is a copy okay?
Yeah.
What we're trained in the field when we're doing humanitarian work is we don't hand over our original ID in any shape or form.
Right.
Ever.
Corruption.
Oh, yeah.
Right.
So I believe that having a copy of that real, that ID is fine in this case.
Right.
The other point that I just wanted to add something, Trey, that you mentioned about being involved in the community, being out there is one of the ways to help create resilience.
Resiliency.
Resiliency. Yeah.
What I would add to that is not in your own circle, but across
Right.
circles, because that's where you're truly going to hear both sides of the proverbial discussion and things that are happening.
So the comment from the audience was that the papers that you carry or the identification that you carry should never be handed over. An original should be never handed over. And that this person was trained to never hand over an original copy. And also creating resilient communities doesn't mean that we just hang out with the people that are in our circles, that we go outside of those circles and we spend time and invest in people that are not normally within our friend groups and social club groups.
We all look the same, all act the same.
Yeah, so
all do the
otherwise
same
we just
thing.
stay in that same silo. Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you.
If you believe that someone's rights have been violated, some things that there is, the current guidance for that is to write down everything that you remember, including officers' badge numbers or patrol car numbers, which agency they were from, and any other details. Get contact information for other witnesses. If someone is injured, seek medical attention immediately. Take photographs of their of their injuries if you can, and then file a written complaint with the agency's Internal Affairs Division or Civil Complaint Board. In most cases, you can file a complaint anonymously if you wish. Part of what we're seeing is that people's rights to due process is being violated, and so if you were able to help document those violations and seek immigration legal aid, that can help someone's situation. If you're able to attend a neighbor's immigration hearing and be a witness or an advocate in that way, that can also help to ensure due process occurs.
Nice.
Nice. There is one thing that I wanted to add to your list, if I could. I was just, for this talk, I was involved in this material as well, just trying to think through different things. DHS is allowed to look at your phone. And when we're in the airport now, DHS will exercise that right more often. And so just know that when you go through airport security, that could be exercised more often no matter who you are. So the protocol through PIRC is to take your phone and to remove the facial ID. So somebody just on
And
the road,
fingerprint.
Huh?
And fingerprint.
If you have the fingerprint.
What's it called?
Biometrics.
Bioidentification. Yeah, so to remove those and to come up with a complex code that nobody knows that you would have to, if you forgot it, because I'm always worried about forgetting my codes. So that you would have to do a key save your keychain type of access on your computer. So there's a way that somebody just helped me do that last week. that I could still access a device based on another device. So there's different things that we can do that somebody just can't take your phone on the street, or a supposed officer or a masked person. You just are not going to give your phone up that way. But when you're at DHS and you actually are walking through a line with a system and a check, know that they can look at your phone. And they called it the clean version. I don't know what you would have to clean off your phone, but they are asking that we would remove things like if you're on a Signal chat or if you're on things like that, that you could be accused of things. If you don't turn over your phone to do that, they can now take your phone for evidence if they are questioning things
With
about
probable
you.
cause.
With probable cause. So know that that's also in the works and happening. That just because you have this device that nobody knows the password doesn't mean that that device couldn't be held as evidence if there's probable cause against you. Yes.
Do you have to open your phone for that?
Yes.
No,
Otherwise, your phone will be detained.
I don't think that.
I don't.
The
I don't
thing that
think
I
so.
just read on, well, it was from.
The question was, do you have to open your phone?
Source. It was from a reputable news source, and so the process that they were communicating is they can't ask you to open. If you do not open, if they have probable cause, they can take your phone for up to 5 days as evidence. Whether they can get into it or not, I'm not sure.
Yes, it takes time, but they can. But we don't want to speed up the process for them.
No.
If you don't know how to disable the biometrics in the menu, if you hold down the power button until it reboots, then they have to have the code, whatever that is.
Yeah.
Mm.
That's a quick way to just,
Nice.
okay,
Just turn your phone off.
Just turn it off first,
Yeah.
because
I
when it
would-
first boots, it requires the full password.
I would say that we just need to be careful about what we are talking about on our phone that is public or can be accessed or what have you. I think other people in leadership need to worry more about what's on their phone with the Epstein file release anyway. So go ahead.
I don't know much about Android phones, but
Yeah.
I know if you got an Apple, if they take your phone,
Hmm.
you can disconnect that phone from
Correct.
your account
Yeah.
remotely, even
Yep.
if you do
Yeah.
not
You're
have
right.
that phone on your person.
Correct.
All you need to have is another Apple device that you log into.
Right.
And you can disconnect it, and that would prevent them, even if they get into it, from being able to get to anything you got in iCloud or anywhere else on the Apple system.
And
Let's
all these
repeat
are
that in the
personal
mic.
choices.
Repeat that.
Oh, yes. You can erase your phone and disconnect your phone from other Apple devices. And so there are ways to secure your phone remotely. This happened to me when my phone was stolen. I secured my phone remotely so that my information couldn't be accessed. These are just personal choices to do some personal, like, searching around on what you want to do. And when you are faced with questions from DHS, I always will promote that you tell the truth, that you are honest and integritable, and that you would follow the law.
But you don't need to tell too much of the truth. Just don't tell a lie.
Just don't lie. And honestly, this is just that moment where, if we're doing things on our phone that are, like, questionable, those questionable things need to be like a face-to-face conversation or could be questioned. So if you're having conversations about, let's say, immigration on your phone, I think just take those offline and have, a person-to-person conversation about it. Kendall.
Is it still true that if you are stopped, if you're just at the point of being stopped, they can't really compel you to put in your passcode?
Yes.
But they can use the biometrics.
Yes.
Yeah. So
Yes.
that's so if you're stopped, they can't compel you to open up your phone, but they can use biometrics. And what we're saying is that to either turn your biometrics off or have a shortcut, because you can put shortcuts in your phone so that if you push these two buttons, the biometrics are ended.
Go.
Or Robert said earlier, if you just turn off your phone before handing it over to them, it requires the code to put in for the first open. One real quick before we go to questions, because we're kind of running out of time. We were given whistles this morning. with the PIRC, the Portland Immigrant, help me out, Refugee Coalition.
Resource Center.
Resource-
Portland Immigrant Resource Center.
Okay, with that phone number on it, and so the whistle and if you witness anything that's nefarious or wrong, to do call them. So if you wanted to pick one up from up here on the break, that's really cool, just to have around or hand out. We were given as well a packet with a Know Your Rights card and a whistle as well that people are handing out right now. I can't hand this one out because that's all this person had individually, but we'll have more resources as well like this when at the
trainings that we offer.
and the next conversation at the fourth Sunday of the month.
Yes. Let's do our questions since, and thank you for all the questions that came from the audience. So let's move to our table talks, and the next set of questions will be up on the screen. Welcome back, everyone. Let's bring our thoughts to the center here again. And we are going to do our last section, and then there'll be some questions and then a Q&A at the end. So we just have a handful of minutes left for this discussion. Start formulating some questions that you might have. We're going to get through this section. Let's get this through this section, then go to our questions, and then save our Q&A for the end. So that we can get the main material.
And I am going to go quick
out.
because the kids will be coming back a little earlier.
The kids are, I hear them knocking. I hear the steps coming, or the footsteps coming down the stairs. A couple of thoughts that I had during break is, with all of these things, do your own work, right? We are giving this information as just highlights and just snippets, but we have sat down with this material now for months thinking about immigration. And some of us in the room have thought through immigration, and it's not just from our favorite news channels that we're just listening from. We're actually looking for information that would be helpful for people in need. So there's a lot of experience in the room, but then there's a lot of this might be new material for you in the room. And I'm just going to give you just the little push to do your work and to really look and research yourself and dig around and ask questions from qualified people. So if you have a question about immigration, talk to an immigration. There are people like ICS, who's a great organization. You can call them and ask questions. Because they're there to help. It's a nonprofit lawyer consortium that's there to help. So if you have a legal question, ask them and get involved that way in finding out more information.
A couple things to start on. Last month, we did a digital security episode, I think.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And so if you want to go back, and we talked a lot about how to make your phone and digital presence more secure. It's on our app or YouTube channel, Facebook. You can check that out for more information about specific things to do with your devices. And also, a lot of this is pointing to the next conversation on February
the end
4th,
of the month.
The end of the month. And we're asking the team of people that we have been creating these documents and systems with to help people that are afraid of deportation to come and present what we have put together. Kind of a pre-training, and also have trainings as well for people who want to become helpers in this. And so a lot is changing all the time, and it's hard to keep up with. And when we talk about immigration, the concept is fear and chaos versus hospitality and empathy. When we talk about immigration, it's fear and chaos versus hospitality and empathy. And it's not accidental, because fear and chaos is very useful to mobilize people. We talk about rage bait, right? A lot here. That rage and fear sells better than anything, sells better than sex, sells better than constant marketing. Rage sells. And a lot of what Shreya was talking about was, when you have a human in front of you that is marginalized, or an immigrant, especially in this conversation, it's hard, as you look at them face to face, not to have empathy, because that's a human reaction. Empathy should be a human reaction on their position. People come to this country for lots of different reasons. Most are not criminals whatsoever. They're people trying to have a better future for their children. They're trying to support their family elsewhere. They're trying to do other things that are good, actually, but can't go through the process because they're too poor. There's no systems in place in their own country. Legal immigration through our country takes a long time. And so they don't have that much time where they're at. They're escaping, especially their fear drove them here as well. So they're escaping systems of oppression, cartels, crime, violence, murder, death, abductions. Like, they're escaping those things. And so a lot of people are actually escaping gangs that they're involved with as well. We saw that a lot too this last season. So they're escaping, trying to find a better way, and we treat them differently.
Isn't the white fragility fear that especially white males like myself, middle-aged, that I don't necessarily have this fear. Maybe I do, and I need to assess that. But there's something called the replacement theory, the great replacement, where I'm putting myself as the original. Like, I'm the original American, right? Where I look a certain way, act a certain way, have a certain set of moral tenets that I adhere to. And so therefore, if like Muslims come in or Hindus come in or all these other people come in, pretty soon I'm going to be replaced as the original. Yeah. So when people make comments like, well, these people don't have the same moral compass that we do.
They probably have better moral compass.
I know. They're probably more fundamental than we are.
As though your moral code is somehow genetic.
Yeah. So, yeah. But it said that, we as Americans know right from wrong. They don't necessarily know right from wrong or good from bad. When most immigrants that I know are highly religious, number one, and to the point of fundamentalism. And so their right from wrong is very clear. Like, it's crystal clear.
And spoken.
What?
And spoken.
And spoken. So
also, to go back to your great replacement theory.
It seems like that's a fear. The fear is like, I, as this original American, whatever that means, right? Is like it's like a fear that.
Well, so you have to name the fear. What are we actually afraid of? Because if your skin, like mine, is lacking melanin, you are the replacement here. Just take that into consideration for a moment.
Yeah, because of Native Americans.
Correct.
Yeah.
We are the replacement. And so it's not about that. It's about something different. It's about losing control.
Right.
And when we look at immigration, especially, if you have people that are coming in that are marginalized, poor, it will swing the votes. And if you take away from, I think there are topics that, if you look at Latin America moving up, abortion is a very big deal, especially for Latin Catholics. And so they're going to vote conservative many times because of that issue. But the swing is when we get into social programs, they need to survive here because all of our money funnels to the top. And so they're going to be needing assistance. We fear economic instability. We fear the loss of jobs. That's what bothers me the most.
But the rhetoric is simultaneously, it's a bunch of lazy people here for our services, but they're also taking jobs.
Yes.
Which I, as a middle class white man,
don't
want to do, because I'm not 18 anymore.
Right.
Yeah, so the fear is like the economic instability.
I watched a 60-year-old immigrant work circles around me. Circles. I would have been in the hospital. So I don't think necessarily it's want to do. It's more
can do.
It's the drive. There's something else going on there that it's Oh yeah.
And being a millennial, we were told we had to go to college to get this job, and any menial work is below what we should be doing.
Because aren't all millennials lazy and they just love avocados too much to buy a house?
That is exactly.
Don't forget the lattes, Kevin.
The avocado
Too much
argument.
avocado toast, or
Yeah,
what is
that was a big thing. So no one is going for those helping service jobs, right? We have a friend, his name's Greg at the Tigard shop. Super great guy, hires and employs lots of immigrants, and has half of his crew has been taken. And
And they have work permits.
they have work permits, they have visas, but they are just moving them out. And he can't find replacements. And so the biggest hit is not the top line economic stability, it's actually the bottom, where there's no one there to help you. Like, Bezos, are you going to go blow leaves outside? Probably not. So you put people into those jobs, which is incredibly racist as well. And so we also have to take that into consideration, that people are not just relegated to these jobs. So what is the fear? And when we look at somebody face to face, get to know your neighbors, like the trans argument, most of those people that are fighting against trans in sports or gender affirming care don't know a trans person.
Correct.
Most people who are, and I'm going to generalize, I'm sorry. Most people, I assume, that are fighting against immigrations and immigrants don't actually know a struggling immigrant. They may know F visa immigrants, but they won't know the people that are just trying to gut it out to survive and live.
Right.
I'll make that assessment. It could be wrong, but I highly doubt it, because when we meet someone face to face, that fear of the other goes away, and we become human and human.
We also need to understand that an immigrant also could be in fear as well. And we have this fear, right? General fear that they're going to take our things and replace our jobs and do all this stuff, and they're all criminals and all this kind of stuff. That's the rhetoric out there. But when you live in fear that you are just trying to survive, and you have economic scarcity and familial scarcity, a lot of these people left their entire families to come here. That creates a certain moral compass in you as well that is not being considered in this conversation. The crime rate of immigrants is so low compared to, I mean, I don't know any serial killer immigrants out there.
You are 16 times more likely as a white person to commit a violent crime than a naturalized immigrant.
Right. So the data, if we just make our emotional decisions based on the data tells us something much different than the rhetoric.
So let's talk about language a little bit. Language is very important. You hear the term illegal. No one's illegal. Let's turn that to people. We talk about flows and surges, but these are just family units. We talk about deterrence when we should say trauma. So language turns human beings from problems to be managed, but it turns human beings into problems to be managed. They're not problems, they're people. So how do we address them? How do we help them in their suffering? Violence leaves behind lots of things. It leaves behind a scar, and that scar is our trauma. That the limbic system is responding to that event. Stories of people crossing the deserts in the night with coyotes.
Oh yeah.
What the percentage of young women that are raped who go across the border
and have to be raped to make the next step of the journey. That's a real story that I listened to a couple months ago. Somebody, a grandma aged person, said, you're not going to go with them because you're going to have to just submit to a rape to just get to the next 5 miles. I'm going to get you across. And she took her across herself.
So empathy comes in where these are real people, our children, crossing the border, trying to find a better life. If they come over illegally, that's a little different. But the trauma that it takes to get here is just so huge that we have to see them as individual and people. We have false questions as well. The truth beneath the false choices, as Kevin talked about earlier. It's not how to stop them. We will never stop the movement of people. Migration has been a human activity since the beginning of time. We will never stop the movement of people. The NATO Charter does not allow for the free movement. The EU Charter does. And so people get those confused. I had to do a little research there as well. So we don't have the free movement of people, but we have to ask the questions, why are people risking everything to get here, like we just talked about? What conditions make migration necessary? What are they leaving behind? But also the big question is, what does real safety look like for everyone involved? People migrate because systems are already violent. Climate collapse, economic extraction.
Because many times we caused that.
The richest cause this, yes. The economic extraction, political instability, often shaped by global powers, and it is our own. We are the main consumers of products in the entire world, and we are making people marginalized in the entire world. Our shopping habits, especially our purchasing habits, how things are created, are making people have to seek migration. So what that means to confront ICE's violence, honestly. It means saying that raids terrorize communities. Family separation leaves lifelong scars. And fear-based enforcement undermines trust in schools, hospitals, neighborhoods, and churches. It means acknowledging that a society that relies on fear to function is already super insecure. If we have to be violent, if we have to show might, if we have to produce fear and chaos, if we have to sit around a room and praise each other, we are incredibly insecure. That was a dig. I'm sorry. So what security really means is children going to school without fear. Workers reporting abuse without deportation threats, because immigrant workers are incredibly abused when they come as well. Families accessing healthcare without hiding is another big one. People talk about the impact on the system of undocumented people in our healthcare system is non-existent because most of those people are not seeking care. The context of
Can we just pause for a second? And I do believe that there's another discussion that needs to happen is schools, churches, hospitals, homes. Those are sacred spaces. They're supposed to be. And we are running the risk, whether it be a federal government raid on a sacred space, or, and let me just be controversial with a progressive crowd, a protest happening in a sacred space, or a up and coming Congress person going into a sacred space that was anti-LGBTQ, but she was anti-LGBTQ, but the church was pro anti-LGBTQ and disrupting their services. So it's good. Can I say this is actually a both ways? Is sacred spaces are being disrupted, and there needs to hold the line. As a faith community leader, we need to hold the line on the separation of church and state, because sacred spaces need to be sacred, and they cannot be crossed. But with a protest, they cannot be crossed with a, if we're pro-LGBTQ, it can't be crossed with an anti-LGBTQ group coming into a sacred space. I should never be allowed into homes, and I should never be allowed into sacred spaces. And we need to hold that line, because if we lose that, then we've actually lost a foundational hospitality environment where we can welcome people that need care and safety, medical care. I mean, there's a humanitarian crisis when it comes to violating those sacred spaces.
I'm moving through a lot of material really fast, so forgive me if I
To wrap up,
I have to wrap up in 30 seconds. So, in the context of faith and spirituality, immigration is a spiritual issue because it deals with the dignity and humanity of people. when we talk about things like the Imago Dei, the image of God, that is an action. And so when we are acting outside of the Imago Dei, that characteristic of God, if we're hiding our faces because we're ashamed of what we're doing, that means that we're not acting within the Imago Dei, moving from cruelty to empathy. But all of Scripture, all of faith, most faith traditions as well, look at the movement of spirituality from chaos to order and peace. And if we are creating chaos, we're not acting within that spiritual presence whatsoever. Chaos is not what we should be doing as spiritual people wherever we're at. And so to close a little bit, to move from cruelty to empathy, fear will always tell us that we don't have enough, not enough space, enough money, or enough safety. But fear is a very poor guide. Hospitality is not the enemy of security. So allowing people in and actually helping them into the process is not the enemy of security that we talked about earlier, but fear is. And when we confront fear, when we name it, when we question it, and when we heal it, it's trauma, we don't become weaker, we become more human. And so this process, when we talk about immigration, it's how do we humanize people? How do we put back into human dignity? How do we give people a helping hand up and out? And what's hard, and we have to assume as well, is that we are oftentimes the causes of the need for up and out.
Can I just say that the chaos versus order comment, chaos is usually created by insecure people, right? When you're insecure, you create a lot of chaos. And I would have to say, I've been a leader for a long time and a faith leader for a long time. And I've met some very insecure leaders in my life. And can I just make a general assessment that our governmental leaders right now are incredibly insecure. Incredibly insecure. Just the things coming out of their mouths is incredibly insecure. And that just lends itself to chaos. There's a couple of things that I think will move the needle on this that I just want to include. People in the streets and resistance in the streets might change some things, but that's not going to change our president. He doesn't regard people in the streets. He didn't regard them before. He doesn't regard them now.
Only when it is benefiting their position. So you look at Iran,
correct, or J6 or whatever.
Yeah.
But people in the streets, even that doesn't move his needle. The thing that moves an insecure person's needle is the very thing that they talk about the most. And the very thing that Trump talks about the most is money. And money is going to move the needle with Trump. And honestly, I want to be very careful about this, but there was a strike on
economic blackout
Saturday,
Friday.
Economic blackout. That hurts low wage workers of small businesses, and we need to be very careful about who we're striking, right? But there are things to strike. And if you look at like the fear that there's pedophiles all throughout our government and economic system, we're probably accurate that there's pedophiles all over our government and our economic system. And it's time to start removing our support of certain things, And so if you have a business that you're just going, I don't feel like the leadership of that business really aligns with my values, I think to just kind of unsubscribe and not shop there anymore is a valid choice. And if we did that enough, I think it would move the needle. It would move his needle of insecurity, where if you start, affecting economics. Yeah. So if you want to go to Scott Galloway's website, resistandunsubscribe.com, that is a great just list of businesses that are supporting and advocating for things that probably are against your value system.
I hope that they're against your value system.
I hope they're against your value system. Now, that's a personal choice. There's things on there that are entertainment and you might find necessary for your life to exist. But there are things on there that are not necessary for life to exist. And we still participate in them. And they're the ones actually backing some of the ICE activity. And so we need to be very careful of what we're supporting. So Scott Galloway, who I do not agree with everything that he says, but this is one thing that I think that he does do. It's called resistandUnsubscribe.com. He gives a list of businesses that are questionable when it comes to their support. And so you can make a personal choice. I think economics is what's going to change things, because that is something that our president does listen to, is money.
Let's move into our questions. So there'll be 2 questions for a few minutes. The kids are back, so we'll invite them in a second here. And then for the online listeners, we're going to just move into our ending and have another question and answer time here. If anyone wants to hang out or talk, that's great. So I'll see you the other side.